Hello. I wasn't planning on making a video today, but I just watched a couple videos and I think it's important for me to respond to those. So I was watching two separate videos. The first one was of John Piper and he was talking about Bart Ehrman. John Piper is a pastor. He is a pretty famous Christian theologian. And Bart Ehrman, he is also a theologian of sorts. He is an atheist, though, and he looks at the Bible from kind of a secular lens and sees how the image of Jesus kind of progressed over time and became more and more legendary. So, John Piper was talking about Bart Ehrman, and there's obviously going to be some conflict of their ideas there. And he says in this speech that people like Bart Ehrman are going to be forgotten. And he says this because the story of Jesus is going to go on regardless. But I don't think this is necessarily true. You cannot just disregard him in that way. You need to actually address his points, which he did not do. He did not go through. Bart Ehrman is a scholar. He's looked at various texts and he's presented his ideas about them. Instead of going through those point by point and deconstructing them so that the Christian lens can then be adopted, instead of that, he said, oh, he will be forgotten. Well, that sort of dismissiveness is why this type of thinking became popular in the first place. If you do not address his ideas, how do you expect us to accept yours? So this is sort of a problem with Christianity today. I feel like most people accept Jesus without any foundation for even believing that the Jesus that they believe in existed originally. And once they're in the group, they quote spiritual experiences as evidence, and I do not see it that way. The evidence they provide is very lacking. They have a sort of feeling when they accept Jesus. They have a spiritual experience, but this exists in almost every religion. Marijuana is one of the most spiritual experiences. People say. I've never had marijuana. So you see this, and you need to have some basis for belief before you join the group. And once you're in the group, you need some more convincing arguments to stay a part of it. Now I move on. I watched the Bart Ehrman, Dr. Bird. I don't remember. Michael Bird, it might have been. And they were arguing about exaltationism. They're arguing whether or not the earliest gospel Mark, the earliest gospel Mark, painted Jesus as Christ, or when Jesus became Christ, when was he exalted by God according to each individual gospel. And so that was an interesting debate, but I saw in the comment section that many people did not understand the purpose of the debate. The first comment I saw was about, why are we arguing this? Isn't it like Spider-Man or some fictional character? He was talking about when Mark said that the demons recognized Jesus. And that's not what the debate was about. He was saying the debate was about whether early Christians or not believed that Jesus was God from the beginning, whether they believed Jesus was exalted by God at the beginning, or whether it was at his baptism, at his resurrection, or things of that nature. What this person was trying to argue is that it was ridiculous for Bird to bring up a point about the demons recognizing Jesus as proof of his divinity. But Bird was not arguing from the stance that this is reality. He was arguing from the stance that this is what early Christians believed, and so therefore they believed that Jesus was the Son of God from the beginning, or from earlier on in his ministry. And from that, if you can prove that the Bible is more consistent, that's obviously going to be of some help to Christianity. And if you know how these beliefs were formed, that's going to help you either have more evidence against or more evidence for your beliefs. So I was not very delighted with that comment, but then there's another one, and these people were arguing about whether or not Jesus was who he claimed to be. And I was scrolling through the comments, just skimming them really fast, and I got to like the bottom of the thread, and these two people were arguing against each other, and somehow they got from the topic of Jesus, whether he was who he claimed to be or not, all the way to evidence for God creating the universe. And this wasn't a long conversation. This was in the matter of like 5 posts, maybe. And I'm like, can you stay focused? Can you stay on one topic? In Christianity, there's a lot to prove. The evidence for did a God create the universe is a lot different than did Jesus exist and what was the nature of his being. Those are two separate arguments, and they should be separated to a certain extent at least. You can prove that God created the universe, but that does nothing for your religion. The real question is Jesus and his nature. You have to prove both to have any sort of foundation. If there was no God who created the universe, well then Jesus and all he says about God is obviously false and just based on the culture of the time. If there's a God, but you can't prove Jesus, then the God remains vague and you can't know the true nature of God or what he is actually like. So when you're arguing with different people, make sure that you can understand what they're arguing and not always to make hasty decisions and things of that nature. You need to understand the argument before you participate in the argument. So I hope you guys have a good week, and I will see you guys next week.